Welcome and thank you all for joining us. Tonight's open house is for LAWA to introduce this effort, the vision study for Van Nuys Airport. We're very excited to hear from you as we reevaluate the land uses at the airport. And this is the first of many other ways we can collaborate and hear from you. But before we launch into the actual presentation, we would like to acknowledge the attendance of some of our local and state elected officials and representatives who are in attendance. We thank you for your participation and your interest. But as we launch onto this presentation, I wanted to introduce our team and our team of presenters tonight. From our development group, like I said, my name is Evelyn Quintanilla. I'm Chief Airport Planner here at LAWA. And joining me is Kathy King, who's our Senior Airport Planner and who's also the project manager for this effort. In addition, we're also joined by the Airport Manager for Van Nuys Airport, Mr. Paul Herrera, and our Community Relations Director for Van Nuys, Diana Sanchez. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we launch into this evening. The presentation is being recorded and we'll post in our website the presentation after this meeting, and we'll share our website information during the presentation. Also, during the presentation, we request that questions be posted in the chat, and we'll address as many as we can following the presentations, along with the comments and questions received through the registration process. And of course, we thank you all for your interest. We are very excited to introduce the vision study and hear from you. This will be an overview of what we have planned, and there will be more opportunities for us to gather your input into the content of this study. During the presentation, we will begin with some background information on the airport for the benefit of those who are not as familiar with the airport, and give you some information on the study, its timeline, and next steps. We are also joined by our colleagues from the City Planning Department who will be sharing with us their ongoing efforts on the updates to the community plans. And again, thank you all for participating, and I'll hand it off to Paul Herrera, the Airport Manager, who will provide you with some background information on the airport. Paul?
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining and taking time out of your evening to join us to embark on this wonderful journey as we continue to make commitments to the Van Nuys Airport and its continued success in the San Fernando Valley and in Southern California. The sustainability efforts are long listed, as many of you have been part of this effort to revitalize and improve our facilities in our backyard. And these sustainability efforts include Van Nuys tenants that installed over 29,800 solar panels producing 11.96 megawatts, offsetting an estimated 12,714 metric tons of carbon. We're a leader in sustainability, and solar generation is one of them. Van Nuys is a leader among general aviation airports of its size, helping reduce greenhouse gas emissions that we're very proud of. Electric vehicle chargers help reduce air pollution and emissions from cars and trucks. Stormwater runoffs filters rainwater and replenishes groundwater. Our efforts on airport carbon accreditation program, only worldwide airport specific measurements for carbon reduction efforts, is something that we're very, very proud of in our continuation of sustainability efforts. And a lot of news on unleaded and sustainable fuel, environmentally improved fuels that take lead out of piston prop aircraft. Aviation gasoline and sustainable jet fuel comes from non-petroleum sources. So we're very excited to see the evolution of fuel that is being used at the Van Nuys Airport. Next slide. So Van Nuys has a long history of noise abatement programs to address community noise concerns. We're very proud of the fact that we phased out the noisiest stage 2 jets operating in and out of the Van Nuys Airport as of January 2016. We've implemented voluntary measures such as the no early turns program to minimize the number of departing aircraft turning before reaching the Sepulveda Basin and flying over homes in the communities just south of the airport. The Quiet Jet Departure Fly Friendly program has been highly effective in minimizing aircraft noise by setting target noise levels for departing aircraft. And we continue to engage aircraft operators in using those power settings as they depart the Van Nuys Airport. Most recently, we initiated the Quieter Nights program that encourages jet operators to avoid flying between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. And I think it is our duty to continue the Quieter Nights program to raise awareness and to work with our stakeholders, encouraging them to be a better neighbor, to not fly at night between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. It is a voluntary program, and we continue to raise awareness of how we can minimize those departures. Most of these programs discussed are voluntary, since airports do not have the ability to implement new mandatory restrictions because of the Airport Noise and Capacity Act passed by Congress in 1990. Van Nuys will continue to be responsive to the community and collaborate with stakeholders to address noise concerns. Lastly, I'd like to highlight a major achievement where Van Nuys is one of the few airports that has attained full compliance with California Title 21 noise standards since 2012. Despite being one of the nation's busiest general aviation airports, we were able to do so by offering sound insulation and mitigating 780 residential dwelling units in noise impacted communities by 2010. We currently have 0 incompatible land uses within our noise impact boundary. You can find out more about these programs by visiting our webpage, www.lawa.org, and clicking on the Noise Management tab. Next slide. We'd like to also share some of our commitments to the community and education, where the airport has led this effort for the San Fernando Valley. I'll hand it over to Diana Sanchez. Diana.
Thank you, Paul. Van Nuys Airport has a vigorous community relations program, which includes providing group tours, involvement in local nonprofits and business organizations. We also have educational programs such as our Adopt a School program for elementary school students, Aviation Careers Education, which is a summer camp type program to introduce students to the vast number of careers in aviation for middle school and high school students. We host Aviation Career Day each year when we bring 1,400 high school students to the airport to learn about aviation careers. And we also have Team LAWA, which is a group of volunteers, airport employee volunteers who participate in community cleanups, host pancake breakfast, and other volunteer activities. Next slide, please. At this time, we want to get your input. We'd like to hear from you. What do you like and value most about Van Nuys Airport? So in a moment, a poll will come up and we'd like you to vote. What do you like most about Van Nuys Airport? A, we provide emergency medical flights. B, firefighting, law enforcement, and rescue services. C, our aviation educational programs. D, aircraft maintenance and pilot training. E, serve private, corporate, and government aviation needs. F, job creation and serve as an economic engine. Or G, provide airport tourism and the public observation area. So please take a moment to vote so that we can get your input. Maybe our expert Zoom master, Victoria, can let us know when you get some input there. Great. The poll is in, and it looks like the firefighting and law enforcement rescue has the leading vote there. We also, I guess, second place would actually be the job creation and that we serve as an economic engine. And then third would be our providing emergency medical flights. Thank you for that input. We really appreciate it. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to hand it back to Paul.
Thank you, Diana. We're going to touch on a few facts about the airport to provide a little bit of background. Many of you know this history better than I do, but it's important to know that for callers that are calling in for the first time with the airport staff, Van Nuys Airport was born as Metropolitan Airport by a small group of citizens, just like many of you, back in 1928. And in 1949, City of Los Angeles purchased the airport for a mere sum of $1, more as a transaction that carried responsibility for the grant deed, allowing the City of Los Angeles to make certain obligations and carry on certain responsibilities to have this land as an airport. As an airport sponsor, Los Angeles World Airports is committed to a lot of the requirements and responsibilities that come with that transaction as an airport sponsor. Van Nuys is a general aviation airport dedicated to non-commercial air travel. It's owned and operated by Los Angeles World Airports. It is dedicated to general aviation, and we are surrounded by the communities of Lake Balboa, Reseda, Van Nuys, North Hills, Encino, and Sherman Oaks. Next slide. So the airport is unique in that it has one very long runway, 8,000 feet, and we have a shorter runway for GA propeller-driven aircraft. Two parallel runways, we know them as runway 16 right, 16 left, used in the opposite direction, runway 34 left and 34 right. The airport has more than 200 businesses that are located here on our very small airport, 730 acres, with no plans to expand or increase that acreage. We are no plans today that we plan to expand that, but we do pack a punch with many of the businesses that employ well over 5,000 direct employees, and the airport has a connection to more than 10,000 direct and indirect employees. This contributes more than $2 billion each year to the Southern California economy by having employees work and live in the San Fernando Valley, spending money in our region. It provides facilities for fire, police, air ambulance, search and rescue, and news media aircraft that serve the region, which was 33% of you tonight indicated that that's one of the greatest values of having the Van Nuys Airport in the last poll that we just took. So clearly this is the focus of many of you seeing the value that the airport brings to the San Fernando Valley. It also offers flyaway bus service to Los Angeles International Airport, taking vehicles off our freeways and roadways, improving our overall environment. And we're really proud of the opportunity for schools and kids and families that want to learn more about the airport to come to the airport and learn more about it by coming to the public observation area that's on the east side of the airport, where you can see aircraft in close proximity to the observation area. Next slide. Okay, I'll hand it over to Kathleen King, who's our senior airport planner with the Environmental Planning Unit. Hello, Kathy.
Hello, thank you, Paul. I really appreciate it. Great context. So now we'd like to answer the question for all of you, why is the Van Nuys Vision Study so important? Well, the Van Nuys Vision Study is necessary to assess current land uses and create a roadmap for future land use. It's been over 30 years since the city last embarked on a comprehensive planning effort for the airport, and that planning effort resulted in the package of existing regulations that were adopted by the City Council back in 2006. We've heard from the Van Nuys Airport Association, the Citizens Advisory Council, who have both requested a review of the current airport plan. And the inspiration for the vision study actually began in response to the city's community plan update, which has been underway. And our vision study will support and inform those efforts for the community plan update. We're going to be hearing from our colleagues in city planning department momentarily to talk more about that. And then finally, more recently, the City Council has adopted a number of council motions that are actually reinforcing the need for this study and the information that we're gathering. Next slide, please. So what is the vision study? The vision study is the first step in evaluating land uses to see how Van Nuys Airport can meet aviation needs and improve compatibility with our neighbors. And we're looking at a 20-year planning horizon. LAWA's engaged a multidisciplinary team to work with us on this effort, and we're excited to be working with them. Our vision study is going to include stakeholder outreach throughout the process. We see it as really a continuum as we make our way through the process, that we'll be reaching out to the public in a number of different ways, and really look forward to making our vision study a reflection of the community and LAWA's vision. We are going to contribute to the city's plan update. I mentioned that. The study itself will consist of data gathering, some facility inventories, and various analyses that are going to help us to look at land use arrangements at Van Nuys Airport. We want to look at emerging technologies. That's very important to bring the vision for the airport up to date and reflect new technology that we can integrate into the land use arrangement at Van Nuys. And last but not least, we want to continue our efforts to prioritize and include sustainability at Van Nuys Airport. It's been LAWA and the airport have been a leader in sustainability in general aviation airports, and we're really excited to highlight that even further with our study of the land uses. As I mentioned, the study is going to continue to include stakeholder outreach and contribute to the update that's currently underway. The study is going to result in a report, a summary report, and with some graphics that depict some land use alternatives, and that we plan to share with all of you and in our upcoming public engagement. Next slide, please. Oh, and I also wanted to mention, we've received a lot of comments, and feel that it's a good idea to clarify for everyone that the vision study is not itself a master plan. So we're not going to be creating a plan. We're assembling data so that we can, inform planning efforts in the future. So thank you. So we are going to be continuing to collaborate with our colleagues in the city planning department as they update the plans that govern the airport right now. This is a map that shows the way that the airport is currently situated in 3 different community plan areas, being Reseda, West Van Nuys, which the bulk of the airport is located in, but a portion at the northwest corner, a very small portion in the Northridge community plan, and then at the very north part of it is in the Mission Hills Panorama North Hills community plan. We're really excited to support the city planning department in consolidating the airport and placing it in one community plan so that we can have one cohesive set of policies moving forward in our planning efforts. So with that, and in the spirit of our land use analysis, we'd like to pose another interactive question for all of our attendees. And Victoria is going to be helping us operate our Zoom polling function. And the question we'd like to ask you is, what additional uses would you like to see at Van Nuys? A, aviation observation areas. B, passive recreation. C, commercial uses like hotels or restaurants. Or D, public facilities. And I believe this is a single choice. Correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you, everyone. Please make your selection. We'll give it a few minutes to process. All right, great. Thank you, everyone. All right, so it looks like there is a good number of you that would, as far as additional uses at the airport, that would like to see commercial uses like hotel or restaurants, public facilities. It's pretty evenly spread out, and including passive recreation. Thank you very much. All right, next question. Or next slide, sorry. All right. So as far as our vision study process, we wanted to show you where we are at right now and share a little bit with you about what the whole process is and how we see this vision study fitting into a number of different activities. So we've already kicked off the process. We're working with our consultant team. We have begun our data collection. We have conducted a number of facility inventories, looking at existing conditions, looking at the existing leases at the airport. And that data is being analyzed and evaluated right now. Again, we're going to be preparing reports that we can share with all of you as a continuance of our engagement. We are also in the introduction and listening stage. We have presented a similar introductory presentation to the Van Nuys Airport Association, the Citizens Advisory Council, and other organizations. And tonight we are hosting our first open to the public community open house. This virtual meeting is for introductory purposes. And as we move forward, we're going to be moving into a consultation, sharing more information, and actually meeting with you to discuss various alternatives that consider different opportunities and constraints in terms of the land use arrangement at Van Nuys. And then around early summer, what you see indicated with the check mark, we would be working and communicating with you and all of our stakeholders to identify a vision that is, the preferred land use vision. Once we complete the vision study, we're really still in the beginning stages of planning, where, as I mentioned earlier, we hope to inform our colleagues in the city planning department with the information that about our vision for the airport that can feed into the community plan update. And we'll be collaborating with the planning staff and begin working on new documents that could include a specific plan ordinance or other planning tools that the planning department feels are appropriate to create some new governing documents, especially for the land uses. And we'll be working with the planning department throughout their public process to consult and share and finalize and adopt the plan or the specific plan or whatever tool is deemed appropriate. Next slide. So for our next steps, we're going to continue meeting with stakeholders. We'll continue meeting with this group. We have additional forums coming up. We'd like to, we'll be providing vision study updates on our website. So we created a new project website that's located on LAWA's website, iflyvny.com/vision-study. And we'll be actually posting documents and materials that will keep you updated on the information that we're gathering. And we'll also be posting information about events that you'll be invited to attend. The next open house that's open to the public and open to the community like this will actually be in person in April. We haven't nailed down an exact date yet, but we look forward to meeting in person and presenting lots of information in large graphic format that we can discuss and continue getting feedback. And this time it would be in person. Next slide. All right, and with that, I would like to hand the mic back to Diana, who's going to help us do another interactive poll.
Thank you, Kathleen. Our next poll is, we'd love to get your feedback on, is how can we continue greater communication and collaboration with our neighbors? We have, I believe this one's multiple, you can choose more than one, but do you prefer open houses, topical webinars, collaboration through the Citizen Advisory Council, updates through our newsletter or website, or information booths at community events such as the Sherman Oaks Street Fair? So go ahead and take a moment to vote for more than one, and we'll calculate those polls in a moment. If you could just hold it up for a moment more, Victorious, to give everyone a chance to vote. Go ahead and click on your boxes, and maybe we're ready for our results, Victoria. Wonderful. Well, we see some pretty almost ties here, but clearly the open house is the main winner. Updates to our newsletter website, which we're proud to say that we do have the vision study, a special section for the vision study on the right side of our website. We also have collaboration through the Citizen Advisory Council and topical webinars. So hopefully you enjoyed tonight, and that's a good way of communication. So thank you so much. Next slide, please. And now I wanted to give it over to Evelyn, who will provide you some more information.
Thank you, Diana. So before we hand it off to the next set of presenters, I'm going to give you a little bit more information. Visit our website, as you can see on our screen, and you can provide comments. Visit our site so you can get more information, and submit a comment through that email that you see on the screen. Now we're going to hand it off to the Department of City Planning, who will be giving us a little bit of background, Erica, on what their efforts are on the community plan update process.
Thanks, Evelyn. Good evening, everyone. My name is Erica Choi, and I'm a city planner with the Department of City Planning. I'm here tonight to give you a brief overview of the Southwest Valley Community Plans Update Program. Next slide, please. So LA City Planning is updating the Reseda West Van Nuys Community Plan alongside two other community plans that together make up the Southwest Valley Community Plans Update Program. Each community plan is comprised of three general pieces: the plan text, which includes the goals, policies, and programs, the general plan land use map, and the zoning map. The Van Nuys Airport is located within the Reseda West Van Nuys Community Plan area on the eastern edge of the plan. The community plan update will consider the land use compatibility surrounding the airport. Next slide, please. The map on the right shows the Van Nuys Airport boundary and the surrounding community plans. Although the airport, as Kathleen mentioned, primarily lies within the Reseda West Van Nuys Community Plan area, which you can see in blue, portions of the airport also lie within the Northridge Community Plan in purple and the Mission Hills, Panorama City, North Hills Community Plan area in green. The community plan update will propose to change the Reseda West Van Nuys Community Plan boundary to incorporate all the parcels within the Van Nuys Airport, effectively bringing the airport into one community plan area. Next slide. Since the Southwest Valley Community Plans update was initiated, the team has hosted and attended many community events, including concept workshops, neighborhood council meetings, and community events such as art walks and cyclivia, before switching to an online format due to COVID-19. Our first online outreach was held in December 2020. Most recently, in the spring of 2022, we shared an updated proposed general plan land use map for the 3 community plan areas that comprise the Southwest Valley. Next slide. So with regards to next steps, there are several major milestones that we aim to accomplish before we head to the City Planning Commission and ultimately City Council for adoption. Our next steps include the preparation of a proposed zoning map, draft plan text, and to prepare our environmental analysis. At each step of the way, we will continue to engage with the community and invite all stakeholders to provide their feedback on the proposals. Next slide. As we continue the process of updating the Southwest Valley community plans, we invite you to join us in this process. For more information regarding our proposals, please visit our website at www.planningforla.org/SW Valley Plans, or you can contact us via email at planning.swvalley@lacity.org. So thank you for your time tonight, and I will now turn the presentation back to Evelyn.
Thank you, Erica. So I guess now we've come to the Q&A portion of our presentation. During the registration process, we received several questions, and we will do our best to address as many questions as time allows. Some questions are similar in nature, so we may address them in one response. And we understand there are several questions on different topics, but we will begin to answer the questions that are specifically pertinent to this effort of the land use. And again, if you have questions that you did not submit and you would like some kind of response, please add them to our chat so that we can add them to our list of questions. So there's a few questions that came in that are a little bit of housekeeping, and I'll just start with the first few questions. Is this being taped and available for viewing later on? So yes, this is being taped, and we will post a PowerPoint presentation on our website. Another question, we all pre-submitted questions. Will they be answered? Like I mentioned in my introduction, we did receive quite a few questions ahead of this presentation, and we will address as many as we can and as many topics as we can tonight. Next question is regarding surrounding communities. Why did you not list Northridge? Is it closer to the airport than Reseda or Sherman Oaks? We thank you for the observation. You're right. Northridge is in fact one of the surrounding communities, and we'll make sure we add that. Next question is, how many people are participating in this program or in this webinar? Currently, we are up to 129 participants. Thank you all for being here. So now we'll start launching on some of the land use specific questions that we have received so far. So the first set of questions, let me start with the first one. How will the vision study be structured? Kathy, you want to take that on?
Sure. Thanks, Evelyn. So LAWA is managing the vision study with technical support from a multidisciplinary consulting team. Work began late in 2022 with data gathering, the facility inventories I mentioned earlier, and analyses that are going to shape several alternatives for the future vision of the airport. We plan to engage the community and stakeholders throughout the process in a variety of ways, including our project website, an in-person open house in mid-April, and engagement with the Citizens Advisory Council and the special ad hoc committee that was recently formed by the CAC to work closely with LAWA on this vision study. And then there's going to be some final products that will consist of a report as well as graphic depictions, maps of alternative land use arrangements that will be discussed with stakeholders. And additionally, the results of the vision study will be submitted to the planning department, which is going to finalize and adopt a plan, as we mentioned earlier, and lead to other adopted planning tools. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. We have a couple of questions that are similar in nature, so we'll probably answer in one way, but I'll read both questions. When will the community input on the new airport plan begin? And the other question specifically, how will the community be an active part of the vision study and/or master plan? Kathy?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Evelyn. So LAWA is not initiating a new airport plan at this time. The vision study project is the first step in a process that is going to provide a roadmap for future improvements at the airport and ultimately inform the work of the city planning department, which is responsible for finalizing and adopting specific plan or other planning tool that's going to govern the built environment of the airport. The vision study is not a master plan. Opportunities for the community to actively engage in the vision study will occur throughout the process and include a number of means that I've already mentioned. Your feedback on the study report and maps are going to be really valuable, and that's really how we're moving forward with our vision study process. So the community, we envision you being an active part of that process.
Okay. We have a few questions on the similar in nature as well, the next set of questions. What are the expansion plans for the airport and what is being done to control expansion at Van Nuys?
Okay. Well, there are no plans to expand the airport or expand beyond the 730 acres of airport land that LAWA owns. The airport parcels and the tenants will continue to propose to improve their facilities to meet sustainability and aviation needs, comply with city codes, and to hopefully raise compatibility within the greater community. So there are no plans to expand, but there will be continued improvement of some parcels. There is a great need to modernize some of the facilities at the airport that are really dated and need to be modernized.
Okay. Next question is, what are the future long-term plans for Van Nuys Airport and the expected change in land use and development?
Okay, thank you. So Van Nuys Airport is currently governed by the airport plan and zoning ordinance that have land use designations and also contain building restrictions that were adopted by the City Council back in 2006. The vision study is a project that will reevaluate the current land uses in light of opportunities and constraints that are being discussed as part of the vision study, and that will be identified and come out of the data gathering, the facility inventory process, the analyses that we're conducting right now. Some changes in land use and potential development could be identified, changes that would improve the land use layout and improve compatibility with the community. That's our objective. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is a two-part question. So we'll have a couple of you answering the question. I'll start with the first half for Kathy. Would like to know what Van Nuys Airport is planning. And then I'll read the second part of the question after Kathy answers the first half.
Sure. Well, this is similar to the question that came just before about our future long-term plans. So the vision study is going to be looking at the existing plans that govern the airport. We're reevaluating the land uses, the current arrangement, and we want to include your feedback. So actually, what we're planning is unfolding, and we look forward to incorporating your feedback. Even some of the basic information that you provided tonight in our polls is really going to be instrumental, and we look forward to hearing more, and then we'll be able to say what our plans are.
And the second half of that question was, and why the noise level has dramatically increased over the past few years. Ryan?
Well, good evening. I'm Ryan Page. I am part of the noise management team at Van Nuys Airport, so happy to answer a few questions tonight. In terms of why noise levels have dramatically increased, or the perception that the public may be noticing, is that there's been an increase in aircraft operations. This has been observed both locally and nationally, somewhere in the range of 15 to 20% post COVID-19 pandemic. We continue to track and monitor these trends. One thing that we are noticing is over the last couple of months, operations have actually trended down a little bit in terms of the business jet traffic. So we do continue to closely monitor that. But that is likely what residences have noticed, is that significant increase in traffic post COVID-19.
Thank you, Ryan. The next question, it's also a two-part question. And I'll start with Kathy. How will growth benefit the residents? You're on mute.
Sorry, I was muted. All right. Well, the vision study is not intended for growth of the airport. So this study that we're discussing is not going to lead to any type of plan for growing the airport. So
Yes.
I hope that's helpful.
And the second half of the question is, and will there be the installation of noise reduction windows and such for nearby homes? Ryan?
Thank you. So as I mentioned previously, the number of operations are driven by market demand. So restrictions on the number of operations would be a violation of the Airport Noise and Capacity Act of 1990. All of the dwelling units within the current noise impact boundary, as defined by law, have previously been offered sound insulation or been mitigated. LAVA will continue to monitor aircraft noise levels and quarterly contours around Van Nuys, which have increased notably due to improved aircraft engine technology. Should the noise contours grow to the point of there being incompatible land uses, LAVA would address mitigation at that time.
Thank you, Ryan. Next question is actually a little bit more on the airport operations. So if Paul, can you answer this following question? And it's, let me read the questions. There's a couple of different questions that have a similar answer. Will Whiteman in Pacoima close and move all aircraft traffic to Van Nuys? And what are the impacts of Santa Monica Airport closure?
Yeah, we are definitely tracking the closure of potential closure of Santa Monica Airport and the Whiteman Airport. It's really unclear, as many of us are concerned and or have visibility of the pending closures of general aviation airports and how that will affect negatively or positively the number count of aircraft seeking parking and hangar space at the Van Nuys Airport. If those two airports were to close, it's likely to see an increase of traffic into and out of the Van Nuys Airport, but it's unclear on exactly how many of those airplanes will want to relocate to Van Nuys.
Thank you, Paul. Next question is noise related. Why has the noise and pollution persisted and worsened when it could have been reversed soon after it began in 2018? Brian?
Thank you. So assuming this is referring to the FAA's Metroplex flight procedure implementation, at LAVA's request, the FAA is working on redesigning the RNAV departure procedures with a scheduled publication date of January 2024. And every indication that we have received from them is that they are still on track for that publication date. To add a little bit further, airports do not have the jurisdiction of over aircraft in flight. That is fully under the FAA's purview.
Thank you, Ryan. Next question. What happened to the Van Nuys Airport curfew?
Sure. So the grandfathered Van Nuys noise abatement and curfew regulation prohibits the noisiest jets from departing Van Nuys between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Most jets, however, that are operating today are quiet enough that they are not curfew restricted. All jets are encouraged to abide by the Quieter Nights program that Paul discussed earlier, which is a voluntary program which encourages jet aircraft operators to avoid flights between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. whenever possible.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Next question is, Kathy, I think this is for you.
Emergency.
What ideas have been brought up for passive recreation and public facilities?
All right, thanks, Evelyn. Well, we have not really heard any specific ideas yet. We had the question in our interactive poll about this as an additional land use, these as additional land uses kind of in general. But again, we look forward to, continuing to interact with our stakeholders and to engage with all of you in our website and also in our open house to get ideas. We will be reaching out to you about that, but I would say that we feel kind of inspired by projects that we're hearing about that are kind of adjoining the airport, and especially to the south with the Sepulveda Basin. We've been coordinating with our colleagues at the Bureau of Engineering and other departments, and we're learning about that project, as many of you probably are too. And we know that there's going to be great improvements in terms of passive recreation there, walking paths. And we'd like to explore the idea of making connections to those uses and then incorporating potentially some passive recreation into the Van Nuys Airport land use arrangement. And as far as public facilities, there are possibilities. Again, we haven't really officially gone out to suggest ideas or request ideas. We would love to hear what your ideas are, but those uses would be things that would allow, they would be public uses that would serve the airport and the surrounding community, such as fire stations, schools, or aviation related courses, learning opportunities, and I'm sure ideas that we'll be hearing more from the public. So we look forward to getting those ideas from you, and I hope that that's helpful.
Thanks, Kathy. Next question, Paul, if you could answer, would you consider moving the noisy charter jet operations to the Antelope Valley? Paul?
All right, having some difficulty there into connecting. So regionalization of air traffic continues to be discussed at local, municipal government levels for many of our general aviation airports that are considered to be reliever airports to larger, busier airports like Los Angeles International Airport. However, the Van Nuys Airport will continue to serve as that critical origin destination airport due to its close proximity not only to Van Nuys, but to downtown Los Angeles and other areas of Southern California and the basin for business purposes. So in essence, jet operations are market driven. Airports cannot move aircraft operations to other airports as we see fit. That's not something that we have a jurisdiction or control over. So in large part, airports exist because they're market driven, and there is a desire to arrive and depart from these runways that are in close proximity to places that the clients and or occupants of these airplanes have an intention to visit, whether it be for tour reasons or for business reasons, and that's really why airports exist where they exist.
Thank you, Paul. Next question. Who do you consider stakeholders, and how will you be involving them? Will this actually include the nearby residents or just businesses? Kathy?
So thank you. That's a great question. And I know we've been saying stakeholders and it sounds like a generic group, but it really is a variety of interests. External stakeholders include, well, actually, we have a very robust internal stakeholders. It's our technical advisory team. So this isn't, this might sound kind of boring, but we've brought together all of the different technical areas at LAWA so that we're engaging our own experts, our engineers, our planners, our transportation engineers, and making sure that we're utilizing our own expertise. And then we also have a really robust external stakeholder program, which includes nearby residents, the community. We have already been interacting with a number of council offices that either the airport is located in or they represent communities that are around the airport. We're talking to other groups like the chamber and some more kind of official organizations like FICA, and we've of course been working closely with, and we've kicked off our presentations to the Airport Association and the Citizens Advisory Council. So it really includes everyone, and we don't intend to limit our contact to formal organizations or business groups, although they are part of our external stakeholders, but we are going to make every effort to include nearby residents, nearby businesses, and those who are really close neighbors to the airport.
Thank you, Kathy. Next question. What is the plan to protect the already overburdened skies above Van Nuys from incoming Burbank flights from more airplane noise? Ryan?
Thank you. The airspace in the San Fernando Valley is very complex. And first and foremost, everything that the FAA does is for safety, and then followed by efficiency. LAWA does not have the authority to route or control any aircraft in flight. As was previously shared, this authority does rest solely with the FAA. And just to add one more time, because this is so important, airports cannot restrict or cap the number of operations, as that would be a violation of ANCA. So it's market demand that dictates the number of flights that come.
Thank you, Ryan. Next question. What is the income that Van Nuys Airport brings to Los Angeles? Paul?
Okay, so the Van Nuys Airport Economic Impact Study by the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation evaluated the direct and indirect benefits of employers and employees that are employed by having the airport in its current location. In 2015, it was estimated at $2 billion for 10,480 jobs. Revenue by law is captured in leases and fuel flowage fees that pays for airport employees, maintenance and operational costs of the Van Nuys Airport. So it is a calculation that is applied on how we come up with the $2 billion that are on the sort of billboard on the southeast corner of the airport. It does show the economic impact by doing calculations of employees that work directly or indirectly because the airport is where it is.
Thank you. Next question. How does the community benefit from this when it's just rich folks renting private jets? They aren't staying here to spend money. Paul?
You know, we hear this often on the benefits of having the airport in our backyard, and I suspect that everybody has an opinion and it's somewhat subjective. But speaking from personal experience, the community benefits by having aviation in our backyard is for education, for young students and kids like myself that grew up next to an airport in Santa Monica, and being able to find a job and put food on the table for my family and for many of the 3,500 employees that work for LAWA, and for the direct and indirect employees that are employed by the companies that are present here. Over 200 businesses that are offering employment to folks in the San Fernando Valley. It's a place for pilots and mechanics to get an education and train them for an exciting career in aviation. There is a significant pilot shortage in our industry, and there is a significant aircraft maintenance need to keep aircraft serviced and maintained so that we can connect to the wonderful destinations that are around our planet. The additional fire and police and DWP services that are parked here at the Van Nuys Airport deliver services close to our homes and those in need of medical services, responding to wildfire dangers and other things. And obviously Children's Hospital has a significant footprint here for all the good services that they provide to the San Fernando Valley in transporting kids in need of that transport. So again, it's subjective. Many of the folks see the inconvenience and or the negative impacts that they have by having the airport in close proximity to their homes. I would argue that there is a tremendous amount of benefit in having it close to neighborhoods so that folks can get an education and participate in the wonderful industry that we're a part of.
Beautiful. Next question. Who is the multidisciplinary team preparing the vision study? Kathy?
Thank you. So LAWA has engaged one of our qualified planning and environmental teams to help us with the vision study. And the prime consultant firm is a firm called Recondo, and they are leading, a leading aviation planning firm, helping us to look at, to really do a lot of the facility inventories and really understand the airside, really a lot of the airside aspects of our airport, the land side, and just to identify any additional needs as far as safety and security at the airport, which is obviously a very big and important part of our overall land use arrangement. We also have on the team land use planners, transportation planners, and public outreach experts to help us to look at the edges of the airport and how the airport really connects with the surrounding neighborhoods, look at all of our tenant leaseholds, and reevaluate whether any changes are needed to, again, increase community compatibility and to make the overall land use arrangement efficient. So it's multidisciplinary in that way. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Next question. What plans are in place to protect Van Nuys from community criticism? Paul?
It's a good question in that all organizations receive some level of criticism. We would not want to limit that discussion. Obviously, it is a collaborative. It's a collaborative in spirit in that we want to understand why the airport is a benefit and why the airport can be a detriment to those folks that live close to and around the airport. It is through criticism that we can get better understanding of the perspectives that are out there. We may not be able to solve every issue, but through transparency and availability, we are able to open channels of communication. And that's my goal as the airport manager, is to ensure that there are open lines of communication, not only through the Citizens Advisory Council, but through the other means of sharing information with those folks in our community, as well as our elected officials in the various council district offices. In fact, we have a team out in the community that do great work with our schools and communities at various fairs and neighborhood councils. We provide group tours and educational programs. We want to have the opportunity to dialogue with the community truly. And the next open house, we intend to do that in person with many of you that are going to share varying views of the airport and how it has an impact, whether it be positive or negative, so that we can sharpen our vision of this great airport that we have in the San Fernando Valley. We encourage people to share their stories, and we look forward to engaging with many of you. And again, it's my goal as airport manager to continue to meet with you. I've met with many folks, whether it be through the neighborhood councils or the various residential pockets adjacent to the airport. And it's my desire to continue to meet with you and to help contribute to the dialogue and discussion that needs to be had of the future of the Van Nuys Airport.
Thank you, Paul. Next question reads like this. My question is, since Van Nuys is in City 6, why can Van Nuys hold off on any new construction or granting leases until we have representation on such an important issue in our district? The CAC already passed a moratorium regarding this, and motion 1489 is asking as well. Although you may answer with FAA gave funds, therefore we need to continue work, you can still hold off until CD6 has representation. Otherwise, it seems like you are not following LAWA's Code of Ethics as one of our most significant responsibilities. We uphold the principles of open government, including transparency in our decision-making, public disclosure, and public access. Kathy?
Sure. Yes, it's a great question. With the changes in the leadership in Council District 6, it's a really great question, and we recognize that this vision study is coming at a time when the council office is, without representation. But I think it's important to note that currently the aviation related RFPs are going to be on hold until after the vision study is completed. So LAWA does not intend to issue any procurements for redevelopment of aviation parcels until the vision study is completed. So this is a way to recognize what you're saying, and that we're sincere in looking to our vision study as a roadmap or guide for future improvements, and will take to heart any potential changes that look like they would be part of our conclusions of our study. So we are holding off on those RFPs, and I'd also like to say that we are still working with the staff at CD6 office all the while, and recently have met with them. So we want to continue to work through the council office, even though there is no city council person in place, and we'll continue to do so because with our understanding that we would be, they're an important stakeholder, and that we'll be reaching and connecting with the community through the council office. So we really want to maintain that connection.
I would like to add to that, Kathleen and Evelyn, in that there are 2 RFPs, and I just want there to be complete transparency on the 2 RFPs that have opened and closed prior to the activity with Council District 6. The 2 that have been brought up at the Citizens Advisory Council meetings going back to November 1st is one for solar, that's ground mounted solar, and rooftop solar. So those are clearly not aeronautical RFPs that were released and closed. But there is one, a second one, that is the National Helicopter Site, and that is an aeronautical RFP that was released. It closed. It's 16750 Roscoe Boulevard, and negotiations are ongoing. And it is likely to go to the Board of Airport Commissioners for an award of lease here in the next month or so. But that was an RFP that was opened, closed, and was in the middle of negotiations before the activity with Council District 6 and all the other activity that I've been talking about at the Citizens Advisory Council going back to November 1st. So you won't be surprised, hopefully, to see that on an upcoming BOAC agenda.
Thanks, Paul. Next question. Why does LAWA refuse to submit plans to FAA that are allowable to enforce mandatory quiet programs and enact penalties for those who disobey? Why does LAWA not apply for a Part 161 allowable restriction? Brian?
That's a great question, and I will do my best to give a succinct but complete answer. Airports are restricted from enacting aircraft noise and access restrictions by the 1990 Airport Noise and Capacity Act without submittal to the FAA for approval via the Part 161 process. LAWA did initiate a Part 161 process in 2005 to address several proposed noise control measures included in the Van Nuys Airport Plan. LAWA hired a consultant who conducted extensive research and analysis on these proposed measures and recommended grouping the proposals into 5 possible Part 161 applications. Based on the extensive evaluation of the proposed measures in relation to the Part 161 requirements and criteria used by the FAA to determine approval, the consultant presented their findings to the Van Nuys Citizens Advisory Council and to the Board of Airport Commissioners in 2010, recommending that the applications not be submitted to the FAA. Essentially, most of the proposed restrictions were found to have costs exceeding benefits, which would therefore be rejected by the FAA. Another measure was already successful as a voluntary measure, so the FAA would therefore not approve it as a mandatory restriction with fines. One final measure was determined to be implemented as a grandfathered ordinance, which was faster than pursuing it through a Part 161 study application. Undertaking a Part 161 process is a multi-year, multi-million-dollar endeavor. So far, 21 airports have conducted Part 161 studies and submitted 24 applications, none of which has been approved by the FAA. Since no changes have been made in the Part 161 requirements or approval criteria, LAWA considers these findings still relevant and therefore sees no benefit in initiating the Part 161 process at this time. LAWA believes available resources would be better spent on enhancing various sustainability efforts and ensuring compliance with existing noise programs.
Thank you. Next question. What is planned for the Home Depot parcel at Roscoe Boulevard and Balboa Place? And there's a second question. Do you plan on renewing the Home Depot lease after 2026? Kathy?
Thanks, Evelyn. So for the Home Depot parcel, LAWA intends to release an early RFP on March 31st, 2023. And this would be for the continued use of the property as a big box retail store. LAWA plans to release an early RFP as part of a competitive process for the potential selection of a big box store operator. The current lease for the Home Depot site is set to expire on July 1st, 2025. So those are the next steps.
Thanks, Kathy. Next question. When is LAWA going to acquire another airport outside residential areas to divert traffic away from Van Nuys? Paul?
So currently, LAWA does not have any plans to acquire another airport. We released our ownership and responsibility of the Ontario International Airport and don't have any plans on acquiring any other airport. The vision study takes into account the current operations and anticipated operations that we will likely have at the Van Nuys Airport.
Thanks, Paul. Next question. What is the anticipated noise reduction mitigation efforts Van Nuys will use for increased air traffic? Ryan?
So in times when traffic may be up or even down, LAWA will continue to implement and spread awareness of current noise abatement programs. Additionally, staff will continue to monitor and analyze noise comments to identify new and emerging concerns that the community may have, and when possible, take appropriate action. As previously noted, airports are unable to restrict aircraft operations or reroute aircraft in flight.
Thank you, Ryan. Next is a two-part question. What is the average amount of jet flights from and to Van Nuys, and how many are parked there? And second part of that is, what are the flight routes, number, and size of planes coming in and out of Van Nuys? Paul?
You know, we cover these stats every month for those folks that call in and participate in the Van Nuys Citizens Advisory Council. Ryan does a fantastic job of covering this on a monthly basis, and much of the data can be found on our websites at iflyvny.com. And it's important to note that we don't track flights in terms of origin and destination and where aircraft are going to or coming from, like we do at LAX or other commercial airports. And we also don't really track the specific type of aircraft, a Gulfstream versus a Citation versus a Global. So we were unable to really kind of carve out the fleet mixes to that degree of specificity. But we do have a good report by Ryan on a monthly basis as it pertains to helicopter operations, jet operations, propeller-driven aircraft. Total base jets at the Van Nuys Airport are roughly about 250. Total base props are roughly about 400. And we have total based helicopters at just about 40. So total base aircraft at Van Nuys, it's just about 700 aircraft on the 730 acres that we have that we call the Van Nuys Airport.
Thanks, Paul. Next question. Why some days we get so many planes flying over so low and loudly? Ryan?
Sure. So depending on the meteorological conditions present at the time, the way that sound waves travel may be influenced and appear to be louder than they are on other occasions. Some of these factors could be the temperature, could be the wind velocity and direction, or if there's any kind of cloud cover. Additionally, it's important to note that aircraft land and depart into the prevailing winds. Now, typically at Van Nuys Airport, that would mean that aircraft would land from the north and depart to the south. However, when conditions change, such as during Santa Ana wind conditions, the FAA may reverse the flow of traffic into the airport and require aircraft to land from the south and depart to the north. So those are some of the reasons why noise may be perceived to be louder at some times as opposed to others.
Okay, thank you. What are LAWA's or Van Nuys intentions regarding the mitigation of jet noise and pollution on the residents of Sherman Oaks and Encino? Brian?
As was previously noted, LAWA requested the FAA to move ahead with the redesigning of the RNAV departure procedures with an anticipated publication date of January 2024. Updates can be tracked on the iFlyVNY website under the important information banner. So we encourage folks to go and check that website where they can receive those important updates as we receive them from the FAA.
Next question is also noise related. Why noisy stage 2 jets are still flying without having afterburners installed before takeoff?
Sure. So stage 2 aircraft are no longer operating at Van Nuys Airport. They were banned in January of 2016, and there's also a nationwide ban in effect for stage 2 aircraft. Aircraft flying in and out of Van Nuys Airport must be stage 3 compliant or higher. And many of the aircraft, jet aircraft that are operating today are higher than stage 3.
You. Next question for Kathy. Is the Van Nuys Airport Vision Study open to alternative transportation methods to the LAX flyaway bus to include air transportation from LAX to Van Nuys Airport, including future technology like helicopters, sky cars, portable aircraft, drones, etc., etc.? This could alleviate traffic on the freeways and roads and reduce travel times. Van Nuys Airport is one of the largest general aviation airports in the world and could be a leader in this area. It could also lower environmental carbon emissions using electricity power propulsion.
Great. Yes, I love this question. This is one of the ways that we were really inspired to, embark on a vision study. And I mentioned earlier, we wanted to make sure and integrate emerging new technologies. This is an area where there are a lot of really exciting new technologies emerging. We are looking closely at urban air mobility, also called advanced air mobility. Some of you see it, in the news, and it's definitely a topic that's being discussed all across the city, across departments as, new policies are developing. And we're also watching closely as the FAA develops some guidance and on these new technologies so that we can incorporate it. But we definitely have our eye on this, and for all the reasons that the person who asked the question mentioned it, there are sustainability advantages, just all around a lot of really positive things that could come from delving into this and integrating it into our land use arrangement.
Thanks, Kathy. Next question. When was the last time the landing fee per pound of aircraft was raised, and what is the fee currently? How does that compare to LAX, Burbank, Santa Monica, and Whiteman? Paul?
Each airport has a different cost structure, and they recoup fees for maintenance, operations, employees, salaries, benefits, health benefits, and other things for each airport. So I can't speak to the other surrounding airports other than LAX, but at the Van Nuys Airport, we do not have landing fees. We have leases that are awarded where they pay a per acre per year fee for the different sites that are leased out, part of the redevelopment and modernization of the airport. Separately is a fuel flowage fee, and that's where fees are recouped and revenue is gained for cost recovery on what we have there with employees and maintenance of the taxiways, runways, and overall areas of responsibility that we have at the airport. But we do not have a landing fee at the Van Nuys Airport.
Thank you. Next question. Your noise contour only go north and south. What about those of us who are directly west of Van Nuys? There's never been any window or air improvements offered. Brian?
Noise contours extend primarily to the north and the south because the runways are in a north-south configuration. As aircraft fly lower on arrival and departure, that creates larger ends on these contours. But they do extend out to the east and the west around the airport as well. The Van Nuys Sound Insulation Program was conducted for those homes that were eligible using federal rules, and that program was closed in 2010, having insulated approximately 780 residential dwelling units, or all of those that were eligible at the time to participate in that program. As was shared earlier, there currently are no eligible residences, as there are no incompatible land uses surrounding the airport.
Thank you, Ryan. Next question. What are the related council file numbers that were referenced earlier? Kathy?
Sure. So I believe this question is in relation to the plans that I mentioned earlier that were adopted by the City Council in 2006. And I don't have the council file handy right now to give you that information. I will make sure that we post that information on our website and make that information available to everyone tomorrow. So, but I will, there is one ordinance that you could plug into the city council search function, and it's ordinance 177327. And if you were to research that, it should take you directly to the council file that has that shows actually the whole approval process for that package of plans that went to the City Planning Commission and the City Council back in 2005 and 2006. So I hope that's helpful. 177327. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Next question. Is there contact info for the Citizens Advisory Committee, and who is on that committee, and how is the committee staffed?
I think I can answer that, Evelyn. So we hold the Citizens Advisory Council, for those that are not aware, on the first Tuesday of every month, except for 2 months, one in the summer and one towards the end of the year. Each member of this of the City Council that surrounds Van Nuys Airport chooses 2 members to represent their district on the CAC. This includes Council District 2, Council District 3, Council District 4 and 5, and 6, 7, and 12, and 3 members appointed by the mayor's office, and 3 from the appointed by the Board of Airport Commissioners. 20 members in total has been the current makeup of the CAC. This is being sort of reevaluated as it relates to redistricting. So that's a topic that we have covered at the Van Nuys CAC of late. And the composition was to provide an opportunity for collaboration and for folks to call in and be an active participant in sharing divergent views of the airport and how we can balance expectations and work on a vision together as a community. Biographies for all the Citizens Advisory Council members are on the CAC portion of our website at www.iflyvny.com. And you can also email the council secretary at vnycac@lawa.org. Van Nuys provides staff reports to the council monthly, and we also take minutes that you can see for yourself when you visit our webpage.
Thanks, Paul. We have about 3 minutes left for our meeting. So we'll do one more question and we'll conclude our our presentation here. Let me see one more question. How are there existing curfews in our area, like at Long Beach Airport? Ryan?
Sure. So airports had various programs throughout the years, and airports that had restrictions in place prior to the introduction of the Airport Noise and Capacity Act in 1990 had those programs grandfathered in, so they're able to continue to this day. Just one example of a grandfathered program that we have at Van Nuys Airport is the nighttime curfew for those loudest jets that I referenced earlier, very few of which are still flying today. But that's why you may see some restrictions at other airports, such as Long Beach.
Thank you, Ryan. I guess we have time for one more question. It's sort of like a statement that was submitted. What are future airport development plans, proposals, plan for development and upgrades at the airport? Paul, can you take that on?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the Van Nuys Citizens Advisory Council was established in the mid-'80s for this exact purpose. And it's something that we kind of resurrected recently with a communication protocol. It is going to be my responsibility to brief the CAC and members of the public that wish to call in to understand what RFPs are going to be released, where they can find them, and where they can read more about what LAWA is seeking to award a lease for. So every month on Tuesdays, I'll work on sharing that information as I understand it from our properties division. And we have also encouraged folks to sign up to receive the Board of Airport Commissioner agendas. And we've also made improvements to our webpage, so it's easier to find than the Ramp LA, the Ramp LA site that has the RFPs posted on the site. So if you visit our webpage, you can read about not only the modernization efforts through the vision study and what we intend to do here through this effort, but also to read about the RFPs that have been released and those that will be released in the coming months.
Thank you, Paul. With that, we come to the end of our time. We want to thank all of you for participating and sharing your thoughts, comments. Obviously, we couldn't get through every single question, but we do welcome your feedback. So please visit our website to submit any questions, comments for our process. And we look forward to continue conversations with you all. Thank you all and have a good night.